Guys, we are back. 646-787-8027. I see my first guest of the evening, and I am pumped up already. I'm going to play a cool, funky groove from him, and then pick up the great David Garibaldi.
Now back to Around the Kit with Joe Gansas.
Guys, we are back. 646-787-8027. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to Around the Kit the great David Garibaldi. David, Joe Gansas, Around the Kit. How are you, sir?
I'm well, Joe. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, man, thank you. What a treat. We just did a round table, and we all talked about you, how everybody loves you and respects you. Thank you so much for giving us some time, brother.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Dave, I want to go back a little bit. I have like a little timetable I do on the show. You've been doing this for a while. Take me back a little bit. You know, I think you started playing when you were 10 years old. Is that correct, around there?
I did. I started in elementary school and, continued through high school, was in did a little bit of college, but then went into the military, started playing, in a lot of bands when I was in actually my last year in high school, played Air Force band, and then, just continued. So I've been basically music since 10 years old.
Yeah, I think 10 years old, you started playing, but you didn't get a drum set till you were in high school. If that's true, what were you doing? Were you doing like we all do, playing on pots and pans and making drums? What was going on then?
Well, I was playing in elementary school band. I was in the marching band. I was in the concert band. So I started playing drum set in high school.
Okay.
But, prior to that, it was just, being in organized music, concert band and marching band.
Right. Great stuff. And you talk to me about early teachers with you, like Chuck Brown and James Campana.
Well, Jim Campana, Mr. Campana, he was my high school music teacher, a really, really cool guy. Gave me a lot of really great advice, kind of like pointed me in the right direction. Then I had another great teacher. My first year in college was his name was Gene Graves, another fabulous teacher, and he did an awful lot for me in terms of like teaching me the the right way to think about things and that kind of stuff. Then after I got out of the military, I studied with Chuck Brown in Oakland, California. Mm-hmm. And that was my first real, I don't know how you could say, kind of my first real disciplined effort at practicing. Before that it was just fun and, kind of screwing around and playing on natural ability and that kind of thing. But when I started studying with Chuck, I got really serious about it and started putting in time and, really became a serious student, with him. And then eventually moved to LA and studied with some guys down there. Most notably was Murray Spivak, and a fabulous teacher. So, those were people that, shaped what, I was doing and, helped me considerably.
Great stuff, guys. We're talking to the great David Garibaldi. David, you mentioned the word there, practice. And, people think, this guy's been playing a long time. Is practice still a big part of your life now?
Every day.
Nice.
I think if you want to maintain skills and, keep moving forward, I think you have to put effort into it. I mean, it doesn't happen by itself. I read a book recently that talked about developing skill, that effort, you apply effort to your talent to develop skill, but then you apply effort to your skill to achieve. So it's talent plus effort equals skill, and then skill plus effort equals achievement. So you still got to be working. I mean, I don't care who you are. If you want to keep moving forward, you have to be, working on it, developing yourself.
Great stuff. I think in '66 you joined the Air Force and you were in the 724th United States Air Force Band. How was that experience for you?
Well, I mean, it saved me from having to go to Vietnam. I mean, I got drafted into the Army, and so the law is that if you went into any other service prior to your draft date, that you could go into that service. You didn't have to go into the Army; you just had to fulfill your military obligation. So right. I enlisted in the Air Force, and as a clerk, just so I could get it all out of the way. And when I was in basic training, somebody came around and asked, "Is anybody in the band who wants to audition for the band?" So of course I raised my hand, and I went over and auditioned for the band. And then when I got my orders, it said, Air Force Band. So very fortunate in that way. I was able to keep playing and, keep working.
Great stuff. We come out of there, I think, 1970. You joined Tower of Power. For the last 46 years, you've been, in and out of the band. But when you think of Tower of Power, you play with so many other great artists over the years, so many. When you think of Tower of Power, is it just like, your home, you feel safe with them?
It's like a family, It's kind of my home base musically, I couldn't think of playing music without those guys, really. We kind of just are, we're attached, we're an organism now. We went from being the musicians to friends to a band to now an organism. So, we kind of like doing things together. I can't see myself playing music without being in the Tower of Power.
Right. Great stuff. You've played with many other artists besides Tower of Power. These artists you've played with, what did you learn about yourself as a drummer? Maybe you didn't know before that you learned from playing with these other great artists.
Well, I guess the main thing was, when I had lived in Los Angeles, I had to unlearn what I had learned in the Tower of Power because no one was really interested in that. It was a I have a very specific kind of way that I play, and kind of a, I don't know, it's sort of a hybrid sort of a way I approach everything, and which I prefer. I never liked not being myself, which when I lived in Los Angeles, I had to do that a lot. So it wasn't my favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do is to, as I said, play with the Tower of Power, kind of invent grooves and, make our own music and do my own stuff. As much as I enjoyed working for other people, it's nothing compared to being in my own band,
Great stuff. I think I've asked this question once before, and I actually asked it to a good friend of yours, Don Famularo, on the show. And the question is this. There's people out there who think they're the best at this and that. If you had half hour with this kind of drummer, how would you educate him? A guy that thinks he's the best, he can't do no wrong, he'll get any gig he wants. If you could sit down with him, David, how would you educate him?
I wouldn't even try.
You wouldn't try.
I mean,
all right.
No, seriously. I mean, I don't mean to be, a wise guy or anything, but, someone convinced against their will is of the same opinion still, So
right.
Somebody that thinks they have all the answers, let them have them. That's fine with me. They eventually will learn maybe that they have a few less answers than they thought they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, life has a way of ironing all those things out, But that's a crazy question, man.
Cool. Crazy could be good in a way. I'll take that. At the beginning of every show we do a drummers roundtable, and this week's question was, is it okay? We see it a lot in music and drums. Is it okay for certain drummers if we hear something from another drummer, maybe to take it or almost like borrow something and take it and make it our own?
Is it okay to do that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, is it okay for us to take drum parts from other people, or maybe make them our own in a way,
Well, isn't that what we all do? I mean, that's kind of how drumming evolves. You take things that the guys before you did, or the guys around you are doing, and then you kind of pick the things that you like to become the drummer that you are. So. Mm-hmm. I think it's, that's how you learn. I mean, it's the same as learning language. You learn language by hearing it first and then doing it in a very rudimentary way. And then pretty soon you have vocabulary, you're able to converse. It's the same with drums. You learn little bits of information and you learn how to use it in a conversational way, playing with others, So yeah, I mean, I totally am down with that. I mean, that's how we learn.
Great stuff. Every time you sit behind a set, what's the one main thing, David, every time you play that you want to convey to your audience?
I just want to do my very, very best. I want to play, give the best effort that I can. And it's. Some nights it's great, some nights it's not so great, and it's just like life, But my focus generally is to give my very best effort every time out. That's my thinking.
Great stuff, guys. We're talking to the great David Garibaldi. Sometimes when we play, we're not always perceived by others as we want to be. But to me, it doesn't matter. When I play, I want to play, a main reason. But I see drummers today who just, I think, aren't educated on what drums are all about. And I call today's drummer. Do you like today's drummer and how drums have evolved?
I mean, there's a lot of talented guys out there.
Sure.
You know, I think to me, the best guys are always ones that are, at least, I won't say the best guys. The ones that seem to hit home with me are the ones who, when you talk to them and kind of you meet them, you hear them play and discover that they're really connected to the tradition of the instrument. You know, I think that's one thing that's a really important element of what we do is, you know, there's a line that goes before us. We're just, you know, and I think it's important to know who it was that brought what you do, you know, to drumming. And so I think it's, you know, it's an important thing to understand what the tradition of the instrument is. As far as, you know, like how guys learn, it's, you know, I don't know, it's so many different things, you know. A lot of guys play very inspirationally, you know, they don't really read or study or anything like that, but they have great chops and a great ability to play music. I don't know. It's a, you know, that's kind of a tough abstract question, but you know, that's the way it is, you know, according to me anyway.
Cool. Yeah. I think, you know, I have a saying that I like to be surrounded always by positive people. I don't want negativity around me. And I like to have people around me who I could trust, who are in my corner. Has that always been important to you, to have people around you who you could rely on and trust?
Well, I think that's the main reason, really, that I stay in, you know, in my band. Not really interested in doing anything else. My bunch of guys, you know, that we really know each other really well on a personal and a musical level. I like the fact that I can look across the stage and I can see, you know, guys that I've been playing music with for 45 years. It's comforting to me. It's cool. And they play great. They have a unique approach to music. We never have discussions about how someone should play, ever. We allow people to kind of do what they do. And that's what makes Tower Power Tower Power. We got a really great team of people. We understand the team concept really well and function that way in all the things that we do together. And, you know, I just like it. I think it's a really great thing to be involved with people on that level for so many years. And, you know, it adds to the playing experience.
Yeah, great stuff. And you mentioned the key word there, team. I see a lot of bands and people I know, they don't want to incorporate that into the band. You know, sometimes it's me. But with you, it's just been, you know, the Tower Power and like a family, and that's great. Guys, we're talking to David Garibaldi, just great stuff so far. I wanted to talk about the drums itself, and your setup, and you over the years, your setup. Do you like the same setup all the time? Do you like to switch it up as far as the drums?
Well, if I'm doing different music, you know, playing with someone else, I might simplify my kit. But I pretty much, you know, because I play, you know, basically with my band only, exclusively, I, you know, have a setup that I use all the time that I've had for years that's really comfortable. And, you know, I haven't really had a need to change anything.
Great stuff. Your experience, I always ask my guests, your experiences at clinics. I've had some guests tell me it's a love-hate relationship. Over the years, you know, is clinic something you love doing, actually teaching somebody and conveying your knowledge to them?
Well, you know, actually, believe it or not, my favorite thing, you know, in the world of teaching really is, actually, I guess two things. I like one-on-one. I like the private lesson thing, I really enjoy that a lot because I really like to get to know the people that I'm working with, and you can do that really easily on the one-on-one thing. I also like writing articles and books, and and that kind of thing. I enjoy it. I enjoy presenting my view of music in that way. As far as clinics, I've done hundreds of clinics over the years, and I'm in a period where I'm not so interested in doing them. They have a place certainly in in what we do. I mean, they're a great opportunity to see a lot of guys play. But for me, the thing I like most is the teaching, one-on-one, and writing.
I like the one-on-one. To me, it's very intimate. It's just you and somebody else, and that's cool. Give me a couple more minutes on that. What makes the one-on-one special? Does both parties have to be, really involved and into it to make it special?
Well, you get a chance to talk to people. You get to have, you could just kind of kick it with people, which is really fun. You get to meet guys, see where they're at. You get to hear what they think about, and it turns into like an idea session, So with my lessons, I get them involved in, kind of thinking about what it is that they want to do, why are they there, and as soon as they do that, then they, all of a sudden they're pointed in a direction, and then off we go, So there's a lot of things to talk about, you got hand technique, you got all the drum set styles and drum set techniques and all these different things that you can talk about and do. And it's just really fun, And so when I do lessons with people, at some point, I just farm them out to somebody else, who has the specialty or something that they want to get into exclusively. I'll just send them down the road to somebody,
Right. Excellent. A big question I like to ask sometimes different people, and I choose who I want to ask this question to. Can somebody be a great drummer, David, without great technique?
Well, when you say technique, I think you have to realize that the word technique, kind of one of the definitions of it, is a method of procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And so how many methods of procedure are there? Countless.
Mm-hmm.
So your definition of technique might be different than someone else's.
Right.
And if the only thing that makes a drummer great in someone's mind is that they can play, great rudiments, or that they have good hands, maybe that's not the whole picture. How
right.
well does a drummer integrate what he knows into the fabric of the music that he plays? Our bass player, for instance, Rocco, he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he could really care less. He really is not interested. I'm serious. It's weird.
Yeah.
He has a very kind of like garage sort of technique that he invented for himself to play. I remember we did some clinics in Italy one time, and the guys they're asking him, well, how do you, finger, these songs or, finger techniques, how do you do this and stuff? And so he showed people what he did, which is like really this incredibly garage, and their minds were blown at how well he could play, but has such a really limited technical facility in terms of, what you would think would be technique. Right. But what he has is the ability to play music. He has the ability to play with the drummer. He has like a real radar kind of a thing that allows him to kind of integrate what he's doing into the music, the fabric of the music as he's hearing it. So it's pretty amazing. That to me is technique, So just if you remember technique is just a method of procedure, then you won't have any, any problems about the word,
Right. You talked about your bass player. You see, David, that's what makes music so beautiful, because there's no book on, okay, here's a book, how to play drums. Read this book and you'll be a great drummer. It doesn't work that way. And your bass player, Rocco, he does things different than other people. But that's why music is so beautiful, because we're all different. We're all different drummers. You might think somebody is great. I might not. But that's okay. We all have different tastes. And I think sometimes we get carried away with comparing this guy and this guy. Just enjoy each other's playing,
Well, music really is art, and no more, no less. And we all know, art. Some people like it. Some people, like certain kinds of. Some people like modern art. Some people like classics. And there's all these different things that people like, and it's all in the eye of the beholder. You go to, like, if you go to the Louvre in France, in Paris, and see all the great masters' paintings. I mean, I go in there, it's stunning how beautiful everything is. I don't particularly care for everything. There are certain things I do like, but that's the way that art is, and what we do is art. You have the good fortune to make a living with your art, so be it. But if not, it's still great. It's still art,
Great stuff. Guys, we've been blessed to talk to the great David Garibaldi for the last half hour. Dave, one more question for me David. We mentioned all the stuff about music and stuff. As a drummer, I know you've had conversations with drummers. Have you played with them on stage together, back and forth, trading licks? So I call that a conversation. I don't like to say these guys are outdoing each other, because that's silly. It's just a conversation of two drummers on the stage. If you ever thought about this, or if there's one drummer, maybe he's past or present, that you said, I'd love to just have a conversation with him.
Wow, that's a good thought. I've never really had a thought like that. I mean, I just look at what guys. Honestly, I'm sorry. I look at what guys do, and it'd just be fun to play with so many different guys. I mean, I'm just to feel what it would be like to be on the stage and feel the way that these other guys feel time. Like Elvin Jones, for instance. I know he's plays different music than what I do, but it would have been great to be able to just be there and feel what he feels and see it. It would have been awesome. I'd love to. I guess if I'd love to play with Steve sometime. Steve Gadd, that would be fun.
Wow.
but still, I mean, that's not really playing with other drummers. I mean, that's not something that I've ever really thought about. I always think about other musicians, but not other drummers. That's a good question.
Well, how about this? I'll get my stuff. I'll hop on a plane. I'll come to California, and me and you will play together. Is that okay?
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that. Do it.
Great stuff. David Garibaldi. Just great stuff. David, anybody who wants to get a hold of you, the websites, anybody for lessons, where can they reach you?
Well, you can, if you're locally here, I mean, I'm not teaching, excuse me,
right.
Skype lessons or anything like that right now. I teach locally at Dub's Drum Basement in Dublin, California. I've been doing that a couple times a month. And I have some students that come to my house occasionally. You can reach me, through Facebook. You can message me there if you're interested, if you got questions, whatever. Those are good ways to reach me.
David, I had a guest earlier. He wanted to say hello. His name is David Stanek. He wanted to say hello to you. Great drummer from Minnesota. He's from Minnesota.
There now? I know it. I know Dave, of course.
Yeah, he's not on the line right now. He was on the line. He was part of my drum table, and he wanted to say hello to you. That's
cool
all.
Guy. Great guy.
Yeah, cool guy.
Great guy.
Dave, one word. I know it's going to be hard to do in one word, but sometimes it's hard. Finish this sentence. Drums is what? What is drums to you?
Life.
David Garibaldi, from everybody at Around the Kit, Joe Gans. This has been great. I hope we get a chance to do it again tonight, some other night. You're one of the best and a gentleman, and I can't thank you enough for coming on my show, David.
All right, Joe. It's my pleasure, man. You guys have a great evening over there. Keep it up, man. You're doing good.
Thanks, man. Have a great night. Thank you, sir.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye.